release an additional $3.1 billion in aid for Ukraine. British Prime Minister Gir Starmer on Saturday greeted Zelensky with a warm embrace in front of a London crowd.
Well, let me just say that you're very, very welcome here in Downing Street.
The pair sat down for talks ahead of a summit of European leaders that Zelensky will attend on Sunday to discuss a peace plan for Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron spoke to both Zelensky and Trump on Saturday and in an interview called for calm. Macron said Zelensky had told him he was willing to restore dialogue with the United States, including on a deal giving U.S. access to revenues from Ukraine's natural resources. But Macron did not say what Trump told him. NATO chief Mark Rutte said Zelensky needs to find a way to restore his relationship with Trump after the, quote, unfortunate spat.
And I gave you javelins.
Rutte said he told Zelensky, quote, we really have to respect what President Trump has done so far for Ukraine, reminding Zelensky that Trump was the one who provided Javelin anti-tank weapons to Ukraine in 2019 that had enabled the country's forces to fight back after Russia's invasion.
We late? A little bit late?
No, we are just on time.
Great. Okay. Так ми не робимо ніяких кроків назад.
We are not making any steps back. This is our policy, to be consistent regardless of what happened before. We are constructive. If we agreed that a mineral...
Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. There were unprecedented scenes that unfolded in the Oval Office at the White House on Friday after Donald Trump furiously berated visiting guest Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It was a show of diplomacy, one that will go down in infamy. Both Trump and Vance, his vice president, publicly scolded and berated Zelensky almost as if he was a little child. Of course, Zelensky hurried out of the White House. He was told that the meeting will not happen. The minerals deal that he was there to sign will not happen until he wants peace. Zelensky then crossed over the Atlantic Ocean. He came into Europe, where he received a hero's welcome. European unity played itself out in London over the weekend. British Prime Minister Gir Starmer, along with the French President Emmanuel Macron, chaired an emergency pan-European Ukraine meeting, and where they said that along with Ukraine, they will present a ceasefire plan to the United States. Starmer is still hopeful that the US and Donald Trump will back this peace plan. Others are not quite sure. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected any calls for an immediate ceasefire in the ongoing war. He says he's still hopeful and still ready to sign the minerals deal with the United States, but he needs security guarantees. That is a no-go area for Donald Trump. What does Donald Trump want? He is committed that he wants a peace deal, a permanent peace deal with Russia. And whether or not the Ukrainians like it, whether or not the Europeans are in the room, he doesn't care, but he's going ahead with that peace deal with Russia. And more importantly, will the Ukraine war itself become a frozen conflict? Can Europe step in where America retreats? Can Europe put money where its mouth is? What happens to the conflict from here on out? First, a deep dive. I decode what is the fallout of those 50 minutes that we saw at the Oval Office on Friday night, and what the consequences are and how it will likely play out both in the battlefield and across diplomatic halls, both in Europe and in the US. It's the most dramatic piece of diplomacy you will ever see.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
It is the most riveting 50 minutes of live television involving world leaders.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
For the first 40 minutes, it went fine until this happened.
He broke this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
And then from there, it was all downhill.
What you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to you.
Far more than a lot of people said they should have. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards.
The president by both US President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
After this disaster of diplomacy caught on camera, Zelensky was asked to leave the White House, and Trump made it clear that Zelensky is welcome back to the White House only and only when he wants peace. It is clear that America under Trump is in no mood to back Zelensky or Ukraine. It's only a matter of days before America pulls the plug on funding Ukraine's war effort. So the question is, what happens next? From Washington, Zelensky went straight to London, where he received a hero's welcome. European leaders are rallying around Zelensky, with London playing host over the weekend to 18 top European leaders who met in an emergency session chaired by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. It was co-chaired by French President Emmanuel Macron. All European leaders who were part of the meeting have rallied support for Ukraine.
Can Ukraine win the war without America, Mr. President?
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that this is a crucial moment for European security. He urged all European countries to increase their support for Ukraine. Zelensky received a hero's welcome with loud cheers in the streets. He even got a private audience with the British monarch, King Charles III. Recently, Starmer had pledged to increase military spending in Britain to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Other European countries are also likely to follow suit. The Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala has said that European countries need to increase their defense spending to at least 3% of GDP. Right now, most European countries spend less than 2% of GDP on defense. All leaders who were present there have pledged to increase their respective countries' defense spending. Macron has been talking about a common and joint European army to defend Europe's interests. The unsaid part is that for far too long, Europe has depended on America to take care of its security. No more. Certainly not with Trump in the White House. The UK and France have agreed to work on a plan which will stop the fighting, and this plan will later be discussed with the United States. Starmer has said that both him and Macron will go to the White House and try and convince Trump to agree to the plan. Starmer says no peace plan will succeed unless there is an American backstop.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
Some European countries are willing to send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine to enforce a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. But they need the United States to provide military support in case Russia violates the agreement, which is why Zelensky has been insisting on security guarantees. Trump, on the other hand, has said he's loath to giving these security guarantees and that he trusts Putin to honor any agreement that is arrived at. Europe could release about $200 billion in seized Russian assets. It could help liquidate this fund and use that money to fund Ukraine's continued war effort. Also, over the weekend, the UK announced $2 billion of additional funding to Ukraine to procure 5,000 air defense missiles. The first part of the proposed ceasefire involves stopping all air and naval attacks at the war front, also sparing any attacks on energy infrastructure either in Ukraine or in Russia. It is not clear yet whether Putin will buy into this peace plan. But here's where the trouble is. This has to be entirely backstopped by the United States. The flow of American weapons to Ukraine is expected to completely stop, perhaps as early as this week. Both of Trump's top foreign policy points persons Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz were on weekend TV, and they've been alluding to how the Trump administration is inclined that all American assistance to Ukraine be imminently revoked, particularly after the fiasco that happened in the Oval Office last Friday. Trump has declared himself neutral in the negotiations. What he wants and what he's been demanding from Zelensky is payback for the military assistance that America has given over the last 3 years to Ukraine. That was to happen in the form of a $500 billion minerals deal, which Trump and Zelensky were to sign at the White House last week until the diplomatic stool hit the ceiling. Trump also said that he's convinced that Zelensky does not want a peace before throwing him out of the White House. He also left a window open by saying that Zelensky can come back to the White House if and when he's ready for peace. Zelensky too left a window open by saying he still very much wants to sign the minerals deal with Trump. Since Russia's invasion in February 2022, the United States Congress has appropriated more than $180 billion to Ukraine. Of that, over $65 billion is in military aid, which has already been sent to Ukraine. An additional almost $4 billion have been authorized by the US Congress, but it's not been spent by Ukraine on the battlefield. About $58 billion of the total aid was spent in the US itself, and that boosts the American defense industry. It is clear that without American funding, particularly military funding, Ukraine will find it difficult to continue the war beyond the next few months. In fact, it could likely end as early as this coming summer. Europe might temporarily try to bridge the gap, but even Starmer and Macron realize that without America, Ukraine's war is pretty much over, and it will allow Putin to declare victory. What they are hoping to convince Trump is that Putin doesn't feel emboldened again to attack Ukraine. And in this, they're hoping to rally not just their European partners, but also hope that Donald Trump will see sense in this plan. So is 50 minutes of absolutely riveting live television diplomacy happening in the Oval Office? Joining us now to try and make sense of what exactly happened in those 50 minutes at the White House last Friday, and more importantly, what's next? What's the fallout? What are the consequences of that meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky? I'm now joined by Professor John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago at the Department of Political Science. Thank you very much, Professor, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. What a piece of live television. I think Trump ended by saying that this would be great TV. When you first saw what was going on, what was your first reaction?
Well, I was shocked because I had just never seen anything like that. And it was amazing to see President Trump and Vice President Vance really fighting it out with President Zelensky on live television. You just don't see things like that. You know what happens behind closed doors, but it was quite shocking to see it out in the open.
So tell me, for about the first 40 minutes or so, it seemed to be going okay. Both men were making their respective points. At what point did you think it sort of spiraled out of hand and you said, uh-oh, this is not going where both parties wanted to go to?
Well, it's obvious that Vance asked a provocative question of Zelensky, and things then exploded. I think what's going on here is that you have to understand that the British, the French, and the Ukrainians are working together to try to trap the Americans into giving a security guarantee to Ukraine. Trump does not, under any circumstances, want to give Ukraine a security guarantee. And here we're talking about in terms of his negotiations with Putin. The British, the French, and the Ukrainians are trying to get that security guarantee. And you want to remember that on Monday of last week, Macron visited. On Thursday of last week, Starmer visited. And then on Friday, Zelensky came in. And all of the discussion these days is revolving around this mineral deal. And the mineral deal is designed to trap the United States into giving a security commitment in a very sort of indirect way to the Ukrainians. Article 4 of the agreement says there will be common protection of critical resources. This is the way they're trying to trap Trump and company. And Trump won't be trapped. And the truth is, Trump and Vance are sick and tired of playing these games with the Ukrainians, with the British, and with the French, and they won't give them what they want. And what happened is that all of the frustration on the Ukrainian side and on the American side just came about in those last 10 minutes. And that's really what's going on here.
So it's interesting you said it seemed to be going okay till Vance intervened and asked a couple of uncomfortable questions, and then of course it just spiraled from there. Now, this is a slightly more difficult one, but what's your best analysis when you saw that video far removed from the actual, from the Oval Office where all this drama was playing out? Do you think it was clear that Vance was sort of the attack dog here? He was going after Zelensky, and Zelensky, fell in for that. Do you think this whole thing was a set piece, that this was an ambush that was planned, or it just spiraled out of control and no one quite could figure out how to, save it?
I don't think it was an ambush, but I do think that Trump and Vance were committed beforehand to making it clear to Zelensky that there was not going to be a security guarantee and there were going to be negotiations with the Russians, even if the Ukrainians, the British, and the French didn't like that. And if you think about the position that Zelensky is in, he's in desperate straits. He's led his country into a war that has resulted in a catastrophe. And he's trying to figure a way out. And he thinks that security guarantee from the United States is absolutely essential, and he can't get it. So the level of frustration here is just enormous. And on the American side, I think that Trump and Vance are sick and tired of being castigated by the British, the French, and the foreign policy establishment in the United States and the Ukrainians for talking to the Russians. So you had a recipe here for disaster. And it took a while to happen. It was only the last 10 minutes. The first 30 or so minutes were rather mild, certainly compared to what came after that. But it's not all that surprising if you think about it as to what happened on Friday.
Is the situation now retrievable? Both Starmer and Macron speaking over the weekend at the big conference that happened in London. Certainly Starmer seems very confident that he can get Trump back around. He in fact even said that both Macron and himself will be visiting the White House soon, and it is his hope that this thing will ultimately have an American backstop. Do you think it's retrievable?
No, I think it's not retrievable. I think Trump has made it clear that he's going to cut a deal with the Russians, and I think he's made it clear that he's not going to give a security guarantee to Ukraine, and that's not going to change regardless of what happened on Friday. And furthermore, if you look at the plan, the so-called peace plan that the British and the French came up with and they unveiled yesterday, it's not a serious proposal. You sort of wonder what planet these people are living on. It has a two-step set of propositions built into it. The first is that you're going to have a ceasefire for about a month. And then the British and the French and their coalition of the willing are going to put peacekeepers inside of Ukraine. The Russians have made it unequivocally clear there's going to be no ceasefire, number one. And number two, they've made it unequivocally clear they're not going to let British and French troops into Ukraine. They may come in, but the Russians will target them. So where do Starmer and Macron get off thinking that this peace plan stands any chance of working? And in addition, as I've said a number of times now, there's going to be no guarantee by the Americans, because Trump and Vance understand that this plan that Macron and Starmer have come up with is unworkable.
So what if the trade-off for the Americans is that you get whatever $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals from Ukraine?
Well, that was the deal, right? But the question you have to ask yourself is, what's the quid pro quo? What does Ukraine get? Ukraine thought if the United States got $500 billion, that it would be willing to provide protection for those critical resources, those mineral resources. And that would be, in a way, an indirect security guarantee. But the Americans have made it clear there's going to be no security guarantee. So the end result of this mineral deal is a one-sided agreement where the Americans get $500 billion and the Ukrainians get nothing. I can't understand why Zelensky would sign it. It would be remarkably foolish to sign it.
So the other thing with the Europeans is that there's a lot of, solidarity. Zelensky got almost like a hero's welcome in London. There were 18 European leaders. They've all sort of made verbal commitments that they're going to step up their defense spending, so on and so forth. Is it realistically possible, though, that now that, the Trump administration has said that they have no interest in continuing to fund this war, that that Europe can actually fill that void, that Europe can actually step up its defense spending so that Ukraine can continue fighting?
I want to be clear here. I don't think there is all that much unity right now. I think the Italians have made it clear to the French that they cannot commit Italian forces to deploy in Ukraine. And the Italians and the Germans have shown hardly any enthusiasm for the British and French plan. This is really very much a British and French peace plan. So I don't think there's a lot of European unity. And as relations with the Americans continue to spiral out of control, I think you'll see the centrifugal forces that are sitting there below the surface in Europe begin to manifest themselves. And I think there's going to be big trouble ahead. I think the idea that a united Europe is going to come to the rescue of the Ukrainians now that the Americans are divorcing themselves from the Ukrainian situation is not going to happen.
So what's your best guess of how this is likely to play out over the next, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks? So Putin and Trump go in, they make a deal, and then Trump says, okay, that's it, we're not funding Ukraine anymore. What happens after that?
Well, this is just my guess because it's very hard to tell what's going on behind closed doors, and I think that's what really matters, especially with regard to the Russians and the Americans. My sense is the Americans have effectively committed themselves to trying to cut a deal with the Russians. They know what the Russians' terms are for cutting a deal. They're very clear. Putin laid them out on June 14th of 2024. And one would think the Americans clearly understand what they are and have reached the conclusion that they have to accept Russian terms by and large. So I think that the Russians and the Americans will be able to reach an agreement. Then the question is, what happens with the Europeans and the Ukrainians? It's easy to imagine that the Europeans will ultimately go along because they can't do much to really help Ukraine. Whether the Americans can get the Ukrainians on board is another matter. So I think the Americans face a really difficult time, even if they can consummate a deal with Russia, getting the Ukrainians for sure, and maybe even the Europeans on board. So it's going to be tricky to get a meaningful peace settlement here.
So the fighting continues? I mean, Ukraine continues to fight on till the last Ukrainian standing?
That's the way they're talking. My sense is, look, if the Americans pull out their support for Ukraine, Ukraine is going to lose even more rapidly on the battlefield than it's now losing. And one would think at some point there'll be a ceasefire. There will not be a genuine peace agreement. It's very important to distinguish between a ceasefire / frozen conflict, sort of what you had at the end of the Korean War, versus a genuine peace agreement. What the Russians want, and I believe what Trump wants, is a genuine peace agreement where they not only shut down the Ukraine war, they get some meaningful security architecture in place in Europe so we don't have any more trouble in the foreseeable future. That's what Putin and Trump want. But I don't think you're going to get that. I think the war will end, but again, I think you'll get a ceasefire, not a genuine peace agreement. Let's face it, I hope I'm wrong, but when you look at all the factors at play here, it is hard to imagine getting a genuine peace agreement.
What happens to NATO? Do you think there's a fundamental rupture in the transatlantic alliance, or do you think that this episode can be put in the back burner and America and its European partners can continue to collaborate, provided, as Trump and Vance have been saying, that they raise their defense spending, which I think a lot of countries in Europe are now saying that they will.
I think there has already been a major rupture. I don't think there's much question about that. I think putting Humpty Dumpty back together again is not going to be easy. And in fact, I would argue it's impossible. I think the interesting question is whether the United States pulls so many troops out of Europe that its commitment to NATO, its commitment to Europe just disappears. For all intents and purposes, I think that is possible. I think Trump is radical enough in his approach to
All right, we'll take a quick break here on the program. When we come back, there is the delimitation debate. There is also the three-language formula, both of which have been opposed by the Tamil Nadu government under Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. Now, he's made a new appeal. He's asking Tamilians to have more kids. But is Stalin's advice sustainable? We'll have details of that right on the other side of this quick break.
We late? A little bit late?
No, we are just on time.
Great. Okay. Так, ми не робимо ніяких кроків назад.
We are not making any steps back. This is our policy to be consistent regardless of what happened before. We are constructive. If we agreed that a minerals deal with the US will be signed, from our side, we are ready to sign. I honestly think the United States will be ready as well. Maybe they need time to analyze some things.
Час проаналізувати якісь речі. Я думаю, що наші відносини будуть продовжені.
I think our relations with the US will continue because this is more than relations during a certain moment. We must be open. Ukraine is not the biggest country in the world, but everyone can see how it fights for its independence and freedom.
Всі бачать, як вона бореться за свою незалежність і свободу. Якщо президент Сполучених Штатів Америки запросить мене,
If the President of the United States of America will invite me for a constructive dialogue, I represent the interests of a country that heavily depends on support from partners. So, of course, if I'm invited for a constructive dialogue for solving real problems, for serious questions and real resolute actions and answers, I will be there out of respect for America, American people, the President and the two parties.
реальних рішучих дій і відповідей я буду. Через повагу до Америки, до американського народу, і до президента, і до двох партій.
Some European leaders offered support to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and some urged diplomatic repair after an extraordinary clash at the White House with U.S. President Donald Trump.
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Trump threatened to withdraw support for Ukraine.
Welcome back. While the delimitation debate and the three-language formula, all of this is intensifying, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has urged young couples in Tamil Nadu to have more children sooner than later. He noted that while couples once delayed family planning, the new population-linked measures are calling for expanding families. He has said that delimitation can be implemented using population census, which is why the state needs to increase its share in the population. He's also added that population-based delimitation could affect Tamil Nadu's parliamentary seats. It currently has 39 seats, and the fear is that when the next delimitation exercise happens, the state might either see stagnant number of seats while the North Indian states will see more number of seats, or it could actually see lower number of seats, even though the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, who was in Tamil Nadu last week, said very categorically that Tamil Nadu or any of the other southern states will not lose seats because of delimitation. But Stalin has now found a unique way to come around that problem. He's requested citizens of Tamil Nadu to consider his appeal seriously of having more kids and having kids faster than they normally would have had, setting aside their personal reservations. He's also asked why should the state be punished for not adding to the population boom all of these years. The southern states have had lower fertility rate compared to the northern states, and therefore their population has remained stagnant or has not replenished itself, much like what we are seeing in states like UP or Bihar. But the southern states, and their contention is, why are they being punished for a policy that was introduced in the 1970s to get a handle on India's population explosion?
முன்பெல்லாம் குழந்தைகளை நீங்கள் பெற்றுக்கொள்ள வேண்டாம், அவசரப்பட வேண்டாம், கொஞ்சம் பொறுமையாக இருங்கள் என்று சொல்லிக் கொண்டிருந்தோம். இப்போ சொல்ல வேண்டிய அவசியம் வரல, சொல்லக்கூடாது இப்போ. ஏன்னா மக்கள் தொகை அடிப்படையில் இடஒதுக்கீடு அந்த நாடாளுமன்ற எண்ணிக்கை வரும் என்று சொல்லுகிற நேரத்தில் நமக்கு எண்ணிக்கை மக்கள் தொகை அதிகம் இருந்தால்தான் எம்பிக்கள் அதிகம் வரும் என்ற நிலை இன்றைக்கு உருவாகி இருக்கு. ஆனால் நாம் குடும்ப கட்டுப்பாட்டில் கவனம் செலுத்தி அதில் வெற்றி கண்டோம். அதனால் இந்த நிலை நமக்கு ஏற்பட்டிருக்கிறது. ஆனால் இப்போ யாரும் உங்களுக்கு குழந்தைகள் நீங்கள் அவசரப்பட்டு பெற்றுக்கொள்ள வேண்டாம் என்று நான் சொல்ல மாட்டேன். உடனடியாக பெற்றுக்கொள்ளுங்கள்.
So the concerns of the Tamil Nadu government and other southern states, it reflects a broader sense of apprehension about potential shifts in political power and the influence that they could potentially have at the national level. Now, the southern states, which have seen a decline in fertility rates and population growth compared to the northern states, are worried that this could lead to a reduction in their share of the total number of seats in the Lok Sabha. Like I said, currently Tamil Nadu has 39 seats. UP and Bihar with a higher population, or Bihar certainly with a higher population, has about 40 seats. The worry in the southern states is that they currently account for about a quarter of all the total Lok Sabha seats. About 130 plus is what the 5 southern states account for. That might come down to less than 20%. So from a fourth, they might come down to a fifth. A reduced share in the Lok Sabha would directly impact the influence that southern states could have on national politics, on legislation, as well as the passage of bills. With fewer seats, these states might also struggle to voice their concerns effectively and may be overshadowed by states with larger populations, which are mainly in north, mainly Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The southern states where regional parties have significant presence fear that a drop in representation, or at least proportional representation, could shift the political balance in favor of national parties which are stronger in North India and less strong in southern India. With a reduced share in national politics, southern states also worry that national policies might become more North India-centric, more Hindi-centric, and while their say might actually come down. Southern states, which have their own regional languages and cultural identities, feel threatened by policies which they claim prioritize Hindi and undermine the linguistic and cultural diversity of India that has long defined this country. All right, I want to go across to our face-off guest tonight. Uma Anandan is leader of the Tamil Nadu BJP, S. Dharanidharan, spokesperson of the DMK. Mr. Dharanidharan, let me start with you. Your leader, Mr. Stalin, saying that the key to, mitigating the delimitation problem is to have more children. It's basically a reversal of what the country has followed for the last 50 years, hum do hamare do, which is us too, ours too. Why is Mr. Stalin appending a long-standing population policy just because you feel relatively your political importance will come down after delimitation?
Hi, very good evening. Good to be on your show after a while. So, see, firstly and foremost, what the leader has said, he has said something like this a few months back. But what he is saying is earlier, he'll say can have or take all your time and have children. But now, because of the union government action, I'm not going to say it. Because it's better that we have more children here. Because union government does not respect that we have followed the one-child policy religiously. That is the matter. See, what is Article 82? According to Article 82, constituencies could be redrawn based on population immediately after the census. Happened in 62, our seats got reduced. Happened in 71, right, based on 71 census. But then in 76, it was put on freeze for 76 for 25 years. Why? Why was it done? Because Indira Gandhi's one-child policy was religiously followed in southern states. So in order to not disincentivize these states, the 25-year freeze was put on Article 82, redrawing constituencies based on the census. And then even Vajpayee put another freeze for 25 years. But the present BJP leaders, because it suits them, do not want to do it. Prime Minister has hinted it during the launch of the new parliament building that the number of seats are going to increase. And they have not said that we are going to put a freeze on delimitation. Unlike other bills, delimitation, you don't need to bring about a new bill. You just, if you don't bring about an amendment, right, because the amendment is going to lapse by the end of December this year. So immediately it's going to happen. So we do not want to happen, because if it happens, proportion of parliamentarians from south of India would reduce from 25% to 17%. Proportion of parliamentarians from Tamil Nadu will reduce from 7.2% to 5%. As per the High Court, as per the Supreme Court, India is not just is not made of, states are not just administrative units, they are also political unit, because we are ethno-linguistically diverse countries.
Okay, I don't think delimitation is going to automatically come in place. It has to happen after the census exercise. There has to be a delimitation exercise that happens. But be that as it may, no, that's incorrect. Let me go across to Ms. Uma Anandan. Uma Anandan, the point that the southern states and people like Mr. Stalin have been making is, why are you punishing the southern states? This is the total fertility rate in South India. In Tamil Nadu, it's 1.8, in Telangana, 1.8, in Kerala, 1.7, in Andhra Pradesh, 1.8, in Karnataka, 1.7. The national average is 2. States like UP and Bihar, it is over 3. Now, the point is, they followed the one-child policy or the two-child policy subsequently, which became the two-child policy. Why are southern states being punished for following this policy for the last 50 years? Thereby, now their political power is relatively reduced.
See, first, I think the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister should stop spreading a panic mode among the people of Tamil Nadu. Why is he alone taking up this issue? Are the other chief ministers of the other South Indian states not realizing it? Because it is a fake narrative. So let me tell you, there is not going to be any reduction. See, he has to learn basic mathematics. As per the population growth, the number of seats is going to increase. That is what it says. 700 and odd seats. Already UP has got. So another 20% based on the present seats, it is going to be increased. So Mr. Stalin should do his arithmetic. He and his sister, they cannot spread false allegation or fake narratives. I don't know if any legal luminary can take this up as a chief minister. Why is he trying to spread a fake narrative, creating a panic mode? Are the other chief ministers of South India, are they dumb? They don't know this calculation? They don't know what is happening? So, in order to convert, see, NEP again, the national education policy and all this, a total fake narrative. A national education policy, because it enriches the pockets of his own alliance partners and his party men, they don't want that. They want the rich children to learn Hindi, 3 language, not Hindi alone. See, it is very categorically stating Hindi is not compulsory. Still, they go on telling. And third, the chief minister, why is he using the platform like marriages? It has been in their genes. You know, they come from the cinematic background, and as per this thing, they are now past masters in concocting stories. They are good script writers. After all, their background is from the celluloid. So they cannot use that again and again. The people of South India cannot be fooled anymore. So I would like to ask him this: if their main fear is the seats are being increased in the cow belt, that is what. It is not that their seats being increased 8 seats or 10 seats. Their main fear is 20% increase in UP. Why? That is what is scaring them.
Okay.
Not that Tamil Nadu, it's not that, is it anywhere mentioned Tamil Nadu is going to lose? His sister is telling today in Tuticorin that there will be a decrease of 5. Is there any law where they can be taken to court for setting up a fake narrative, for stating a false statement, saying that seats are going to be restored? Can anybody from the judiciary take cognizance of this?
No, so Salem Danigaran, the whole principle of proportional representation is it represents the population of a state. That's how you have proportional representation. Uttar Pradesh, by post-independence, has always had the largest population of any state in the country and has always had the largest share of Lok Sabha seats. Now, there are 3-4 things that need to be asked of the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister and of the DMK. If the advice is go have more children, does the state have enough funds to take care of those children? The outstanding total debt of the state of Tamil Nadu is 8.3 lakh crores. The outstanding debt to GDP ratio is 31%, which means for every 1 rupee that Tamil Nadu generates, 30 paise is going just servicing debt. And the outstanding liabilities in the last 4 years that your government has been there in power has increased by 108%. So where will the state find revenues and resources to take care of more children, the advice that the Chief Minister is giving?
Yes, Zaka, I'm coming to you. Firstly and foremost, who
See,
who
the
resulted in this
total
situation?
loan also.
No, I have to speak now, madam, please. I never interrupted you. Firstly and foremost, UP's population was only twice that of Tamil Nadu in 1971. Today it's become 4 times. Rajasthan's population was nearly half that of Tamil Nadu. Today Rajasthan's population is more than that of Tamil Nadu. Why? Because in Tamil Nadu we followed the union government in the national interest. But instead of incentivizing us, you are disincentivizing. The previous speaker said we don't. If we understand math, I understand math really well. That's why we are saying proportionally seats will get reduced. The term proportionally in terms of percentage, absolute numbers.
Sorry.
Absolute
Sorry,
numbers will
the
rise
Hindus
when
follow
the
family planning.
The
Hindus follow family planning. I need not say more for UP and Bihar.
Not let the other panelists.
I need not say more for UP and Bihar.
Ma'am, I'll come back to you. Let him make
No,
his
because you are
point.
dealing
One
out
at a
the
time,
fake
please.
narrative.
One at a time. Otherwise, it's
You are
not
dealing
serving
out
any
the false
purpose.
one.
Let him make his point and then
Yeah,
I'll come back
not
to
very.
you.
Naka, you should do that. See, let her speak, then I will speak, then she can speak. She
No,
can rebut
you
me.
make
I'm
your
not
point.
a bad person.
Dharani, you please answer my question. The state is broke. Where can the state find the resources to have more kids and to service those kids?
Firstly, I will have to rebut her also, no? That's why I'm saying. So, proportionally, it is reducing because, and it's not ill-founded fear. All major newspapers for the last 2 years have been writing about delimitation exercise. Times of India, Indian Express, XYZ. Having said that, states' finances are much better than the government of India's finances because excluding states, government of India's debt to GDP ratio is 53%. That is point number one. Point number two, our debt to GDP is 28%, 27 to 28%. But when DMK demoted office in 2011, our debt to GDP was only 17%. Only after BJP and ADMK coalition rule, the debt to GDP reached 28%, which in spite of all the hardship, we have reduced by about 0.5%. So our rule will continue and we will reduce it like how we have done it before, how we have done. So when we are speaking about debt, we have to understand how the debt to GDP of Tamil Nadu increased.
Okay.
It's there on record, white paper published by Dr. Palanivel Tyagarajan in 2021 that Tamil Nadu's debt to GDP in 2011 was the lowest in India, 17%. When Yadapadi Palaniswamy, BJP alliance partner, left the office, it was 28% and we've reduced it by a small marginal.
Ms. Umanandan, the fertility rate of Tamil Nadu is less than 2%. Only 7 states, 5 of them happen to be in southern India, have a fertility rate of less than 2%. And the reason why they have fertility rate of less than 2% is because they were following the central government policy of we too, ours too. The welfare schemes as a result will cost the exchequer more because there are fewer people in those states and a fewer tax collecting net. The central schemes are based on the economic situation of each of those individual states. So the center anyway allocates more by way of welfare schemes and welfare monies to states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar because there is a larger proportion of poorer people there and it is being funded by southern states, slightly more rich and prosperous states because more tax collections, both direct and indirect tax collections happen in the southern states. So the contention is they are paying more taxes, they are having fewer kids and yet their political power is progressively reducing, at least proportionally reducing.
See, I would like to state this point. The Tamil Nadu government stands first in the number of the population. Ours and Madhya Pradesh is more or less same. But in the loan sector, Madhya Pradesh stands 10th while we stand first with the same, more or less the same population. So let him not deny. And one more thing I would like to say. Family planning was followed faithfully by Hindus and Christians. So let him speak about Bihar and UP, the nature of population there, and then come to us. And second, I would like to say every year there is an increase of 1 lakh crore in Tamil Nadu's deficit since the DMK came to power. So if they say that we are giving more, let them compare it to the UP, the revenue from UP. So he cannot simply quote out of his head certain things. Tamil Nadu is in a pathetic state today. For freebies used, everything. We are very bad in the financial management of it. Everywhere our loans is increasing every year by 1 lakh crore. The freebies, everything. So the government is not a performing government in Tamil Nadu. If he says the population, I think he should stand to see the demographic state of both Bihar and UP. The Hindus have faithfully followed family planning. Can he say that for the other community?
Okay, we'll
Let him
leave
be
it
honest
at that.
in that. So
I
that
want to
is
see,
the reason
how
for
this plays out. Thank you very
That I
much,
have to
Selam
rebut.
Dharnidharan and Ms. Umanandan for joining us from the DMK and the BJP respectively. Clearly, this has got to do with one eye on the polls that are coming up next year. Mr. Stalin ratcheting up the politics and the political quotient when it comes to the NAP, the three-language formula, now delimitation, and of course his advice to young Tamil couples to have more children and have them quickly. We'll see how this plays out. Meanwhile, talking about politics, Congress spokesperson Dr. Shama Mohammed is under fire for calling Indian skipper, Indian cricket team captain Rohit Sharma, fat for a spokesperson. She also went on to brand his captaincy as the most unimpressive in the country. She questioned Rohit Sharma's legacy, comparing it to cricketing legends like Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli and Kapil Dev. In fact, her comments drew immediate backlash from the BJP and from cricket fans. In fact, even her party, the Congress party, has distanced itself completely from the controversy, asking her to delete the post on social media where she criticized the Indian cricket team captain. She did so, she deleted that post, but she stuck to her gun, saying she has freedom of expression and she can express an opinion in this country. But the outrage only peaked throughout the day. The sports minister himself took to social media, Mr. Mansukh Mandavia. He asked that sportspersons be left out of the political discourse, pointing out that such comments undermine the hard work and sacrifices of the Indian team. But Shama Mohammed, like I said, has come out and deleted her post because her party asked her to. She has thus far not issued an apology or expressed regret for the comments that she made about the Indian cricket team captain. Let's just tell you what she posted before she deleted it under pressure from her own party. This is what Shama Mohammed forgets while she sort of ridicules or criticizes Rohit Sharma's fitness or the lack of it. Rohit Sharma has 4,231 runs. He holds the record for the most runs in T20 cricket. His consistency in this format is unmatched. He scored 177 on his test debut. That's not a small feat. It's a clear indicator of his ability to perform under high-pressure situations. With 633 sixes across formats, tests, one-dayers and T20s, Rohit Sharma has established himself as one of the most prolific hitters in world cricket, hitters of sixes. His leadership is not just about runs, he's also contributed with his fielding. He's got 62 catches as a T20 captain. Rohit Sharma also holds the record for the most number of hundreds in T20 cricket. He's got 5 centuries to his name. His ability to perform in a one-day series is also highlighted by his record of 500s in a single series, and that too, I believe, was in the World Cup 2019 in an ICC-sponsored event. Scoring 186 runs purely from 4s and 6s in a one-day innings, it further emphasizes his attacking style of batting. He's also among the fastest to reach 3,500 runs in ODI cricket, underscoring his efficiency and his consistency. These numbers are a testament to his consistent performance across formats. They certainly paint a different picture to what Shama Mohammed had painted, that Rohit is unfit, both physically and mentally, to lead India as captain.
See, it was just a generic tweet about a fitness of a sports person. It is not body shaming. It's about the fitness of a sports person. I always believe a sports person has to be fit. So I felt he's a bit overweight and I just tweeted on that. And I've been attacked for no reason, And when I compared him to the other captains, previous captains like Dhoni, or for that matter, Ganguly, Dravid, Tendulkar, Kapil Dev. So I put in and Virat. I put in a statement because I found him, I have the right, it's a democracy. What is wrong in saying? I just spoke in a generic manner and I fail to understand a democracy. We don't have the right to speak in such a manner.
All right, today is World Wildlife Day. Prime Minister Modi visited the Gir National Park in Gujarat, which showcases India's commitment to conserving the Asiatic lion. Prime Minister Modi, who spent the night at the Sindh Southern, which is the forest guest house managed by the State Forest Department, went on a lion safari early this morning, and some ministers and senior Forest Department officials accompanied him in that endeavour. He also chaired the 7th meeting of the National Board of Wildlife and released the report of the first ever riverine dolphin estimation in the country. There are more than 6,000 dolphins in India. It's the first time that dolphins have been enumerated. This pioneering effort involved surveying 28 rivers across 8 states. Here's a highlight of what Prime Minister Modi did on World Wildlife Day at the Gir Asiatic Lion Sanctuary and the other endeavours that he took part in, talking about the importance of wildlife.
In his home state of Gujarat, dressed in a camouflage outfit, Prime Minister Modi began his day with a safari in the Gir Wildlife Sanctuary. The camera in his hand, the Prime Minister turning photographer, capturing breathtaking moments of Asiatic lions in their natural habitat. Accompanied by ministers and senior forest officials, the Prime Minister ventured deep into the Gir forest to witness firsthand these magnificent beasts. Gujarat has been at the forefront of Asiatic lion conservation, implementing various policies and initiatives to safeguard their habitat, preventing poaching and boosting their population. These efforts have contributed to the increasing number of Asiatic lions. Its population has seen a 29% increase from 523 in 2015 to 674 in 2020. And in May this year, another census will be conducted. Gir National Park is one of India's greatest success stories in wildlife conservation, but the Prime Minister's passion is not limited to just this one project. On World Wildlife Day, he laid the foundation stone for the National Referral Centre at Junagadh. He announced that a Centre of Excellence for Human-Wildlife Conflict Management will be set up in Coimbatore soon. Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed the central government's dedication to protecting and preserving the nation's rich biodiversity. And over the last decade, the Prime Minister has led from the front on this issue. As the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he established the Greater Gir Wildlife Protection Task Force to monitor wildlife crimes and strengthen conservation measures. The Greater Gir Conservation Model expanded lion protection beyond Gir National Park to 30,000 square kilometers. His tenure as the Chief Minister also saw the historic recruitment of women beat guards and the launch of the Vanya Prani Mitra scheme to involve local communities in wildlife protection. In March 2024, he became the first Indian Prime Minister in nearly 7 decades to visit Kaziranga, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. He embarked on an elephant and jeep safari, taking in the park's breathtaking natural beauty. On his 72nd birthday in 2022, he led the historic reintroduction of cheetahs in India at the Kuno National Park, bringing the majestic species back after 70 years of extinction. Prime Minister Modi's appearance on Man vs. Wild with Bear Grylls at Jim Corbett National Park made headlines in 2019.
You are the most important man in India. My job is to keep you alive.
He continues to blend adventure with conservation as he underscores the need for sustainable funding and community participation in conservation initiatives this World Wildlife Day.
Project Lion, launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Gujarat's iconic Gir National Park, is going to be a game changer for Asiatic lions. With a massive budget of nearly rupees 3,000 crore, this ambitious project is all about securing the future of India's last wild population of Asiatic lions, making sure these majestic creatures thrive for generations to come. Well, it's been nearly 15 years since Modi visited Gir. It was way back in 2007 when a tragic incident involving poaching led to deaths of several lions. Back then, as the Chief Minister, Mr. Modi met with officials and local communities and pledged his commitment to lion conservation. Now, as the Prime Minister, he is taking that promise to the next level with Project Lion, a bold new conservation initiative he had first announced during his Independence Day speech in 2020. What's so exciting about Project Lion? For one, the centerpiece of the project is a cutting-edge veterinary hospital in Sasan, Gujarat, which will also serve as the National Wildlife Disease Diagnostic Center. This hospital will be crucial in diagnosing and preventing diseases which have previously put lion populations at risk. With world-class facilities, this hospital will be a lifeline for ensuring the health and longevity of these incredible animals. But that's not all. The project will also focus on expanding the lion's habitat by developing the Barda Wildlife Sanctuary in Porbandar, just 100 kilometers west of Gir. Barda, identified as an ideal spot to support up to 40 lions, will help ease the pressure on Gir and ensure the lion population can continue to grow in a safe and sustainable environment. The sanctuary will also feature habitat improvement, boosting the prey population, and even a voluntary relocation plan for human settlements inside protected areas, reducing the risk of human-wildlife conflict. This is not just about protecting lions, it's about creating a sustainable ecosystem. Since the 2015 census recorded 523 lions, the population of them has soared, reaching 674 lions in 2020, a 29% rise in just 5 years. With more lions spreading across 9 districts in Saurashtra, some even venturing to areas like Palitana, Pipapav and Somnath, the challenge now is managing this explosive growth. The Gir Wildlife Sanctuary has nearly reached its threshold, so it's essential to develop new sanctuaries like Barda to accommodate these rising numbers. There is also a need for better tourism infrastructure around these incredible habitats. Measures will also be taken to reduce lion deaths on railway tracks by building boundary walls across and along the train routes. The vision is clear: more sanctuaries, more support and more protection for the lions. Efforts to plant tall grass in Gir Sanctuary are also underway, creating an ideal environment for the lions to move freely and safely. Well, Project Lion, as I said, is not just a conservation effort. It's a bold step towards ensuring the future of Asiatic lions in India. With cutting-edge veterinary care, expanded sanctuaries, and a focus on improving their habitats, the lions of Gujarat are getting the world-class protection they deserve. This dynamic, forward-thinking project is all about securing the long-term survival of one of India's most iconic species. And with Modi's leadership, it's clear the roar of the Asiatic lion will be heard loud and clear for the years to come.
If there's one thing the Academy Awards has taught us over the years, it's that predictions are just, well, predictions. The real magic of Hollywood's biggest night lies in its surprises, upsets, and history-making moments, and the 2025 Oscars was no exception. The most shocking moment of the evening was Zoe Saldana's unexpected win for Emilia Perez in the Best Supporting Actress category. Now, don't get us wrong, she delivered a phenomenal performance. But with the cloud of controversy surrounding her co-star Carla Sofia Gascon's resurfaced offensive tweets, many assumed the film would be overlooked by the Academy. Yet, against all odds, despite being the most nominated film of the night with 13 nods, it managed to secure 2 Oscars. But the biggest winner of the evening by far was Anora. The film dominated, sweeping 5 of its 6 nominations, including the most coveted titles. With his remarkable triumphs, writer, director and editor Sean Baker etched his name in history, tying Walt Disney's long-standing record of winning 4 competitive Oscars in a single night. Elsewhere, The Brutalist raked up 3 wins, while Wicked and Dune Part 2 each took home 2. A major talking point heading into the ceremony was whether 29-year-old Timothée Chalamet would make history as the youngest ever Best Actor winner for his transformative portrayal of Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. But in a full circle moment, the award went instead to Adrian Brody, who had previously held that same record for The Pianist.
Saman Cap.
We late? A little bit late?
No, we are just on time.
Great. Okay. Так ми не робимо ніяких кроків назад.
We are not making any steps back. This is our policy to be consistent regardless of what happened before. We are constructive. If we agreed that a minerals deal with the US will be signed, from our side, we are ready to sign. I honestly think the United States will be ready as well. Maybe they need time to analyze some things.
Час проаналізувати якісь речі. Я думаю, що наші відносини будуть.
I think our relations with the US will continue because this is more than relations during a certain moment. We must be open. Ukraine is not the biggest country in the world, but everyone can see how it fights for its independence and freedom.
Всі бачать, як вона бореться за свою незалежність і свободу. Якщо президент Сполучених Штатів Америки запросить мене.
If the President of the United States of America will invite me for a constructive dialogue, I represent the interests of a country that heavily depends on support from partners. So, of course, if I'm invited for a constructive dialogue for solving real problems, for serious questions and real resolute actions and answers, I will be there out of respect for America, American people, the President and the two parties.
Реальних рішучих дій і відповідей я буду. Через повагу до Америки, до американського народу, і до президента, і до двох партій.
Some European leaders offered support to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and some urged diplomatic repair after an extraordinary clash at the White House with U.S. President Donald Trump.
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Trump threatened to withdraw support for Ukraine 3 years after Russia's invasion.
We gave you military equipment.
A new era of wickedness has begun, said German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who urged Germany to release an additional $3.1 billion in aid for Ukraine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Saturday greeted Zelensky with a warm embrace in front of a London crowd.
Well, let me just say that you're very, very welcome here in Downing Street.
The pair sat down for talks ahead of a summit of European leaders that Zelensky will attend on Sunday to discuss a peace plan for Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron spoke to both Zelensky and Trump on Saturday, and in an interview,
Viewers, it was Preeti Zinta a few days ago. Rashmika Mandana yesterday, top constitutional post holders like President Murmu, former EC and CJI a while ago. Today, it is the turn of Rohit Sharma to be trolled by a Congress neta in a brazen display of contempt for informed commentating that takes discourse into the gutter, viewers. That's right. Each of the misdirected, misplaced insults that have been hurled by a top public-facing politician of the Congress party to describe India's cricket captain Rohit Sharma could easily apply to the several dynasts who are littered across the Congress ecosystem. But we will come to that. First, let's tell you what Shama Muhammad, national spokesperson of the Congress party, has said. And I quote, viewers, Rohit Sharma is fat for a sportsman, needs to lose weight, and of course, the most unimpressive captain India has ever had.